Hello everyone, welcome back to Instant Release. Today we're going to talk about gear acquisition syndrome and no script today, nothing written in advance, nothing, like absolutely nothing. I'm just going to talk about that syndrome that touches pretty much everyone, but especially photographers. So if you don't know, gear acquisition syndrome is a photography term mostly, but it applies to pretty much everyone. And it basically defines what we call thinking the grass is always greener elsewhere, pretty much. So, if you think you haven't been guilty of that, you have. There is no other way around it. You have been guilty of that. And I'm going to try, for photography, I'm going to try to give you a solution or a method to try to negate it as much as possible. So, first, what are the symptoms of gear acquisition syndrome? I'm going to talk about my own experience, but that could apply to a various number of situations. My own experience with gear acquisition syndrome was back when I had this little guy, which is the XT1, the Fujifilm XT1. This was my main and only camera. I had still the M50 at the time, but I wasn't using it because I didn't like using it, like the ergonomics didn't fit me. And I had the XT1 and I was doing fine with it. The camera was plenty for what I was doing. And one day, I had an SD card failure or something that really scared me to death because I was shooting for someone else and not me. If it was me, it was not a problem, but if you are shooting for someone, losing all your photos is not ideal. So, that scared me to death, and I instantly looked at cameras with double SD card slots. But I didn't really need it like that much. I'm not shooting that much like pro-ish events. I have been shooting a few of them, but not to a point that I would say it's my main activity. I'm mostly a hobbyist, amateur photographer that does mostly street landscape, and that's about it. So, gear acquisition syndrome pushed me to believe that I needed a camera with better specs because somehow, out of the blue, 16 megapixel in the XT1 wasn't doing it, and the video specs were not good enough. It's not great in the XT1 to be fair, but I was not really interested in video in the first place, and over a few weeks, my mind shifted from the XT1 is all I need to I need an XT2 or XT3. And as a matter of fact, I got an XT2, which I'm filming on right now. But that's not really the issue. The issue here is that I really didn't see the thing properly. I wasn't able to put things into context. And I wasn't able to say that the XT2 would not give me any advantage except the double card slot for what I'm generally doing, which is personal stuff and mostly, landscape, stuff like that. Yeah, a bit more resolution, but to be fair, I couldn't really see the difference. Better dynamic range and noise performance, but to be fair, again, I couldn't really see the difference because I'm mostly shooting in broad daylight. And that led me to believe that, yeah, the XT2 is a better camera, I better get it. And that was my first step into gear acquisition syndrome, really. Later on, if we look at what I've bought in the last few months, you might recall a little video, the last video, where I talk about that little beast, which is the Nikon D700. The D700 buying decision came purely from a Discord server, which is made for photographers and videographers. And there's a Gear Talk channel, and there's a lot of people raving about, yeah, full frame is so much better than APS-C. The depth of field is drastically different. And I wanted to test that for myself, and that put the idea in my head that APS-C wasn't good enough. Well, that's just a shitty idea, really. and I got myself a full frame, and I wasn't able to see a difference in depth of field in most occasions. Like if I really look for it, yeah, I can see that it's a shallow depth of field on full frame, but other than that, as long as there is background separation, I was plenty good with my APS-C stuff. And though I love the D700, it's not for the fact that it's a full frame sensor. I love it because it's an F-mount camera. It's a very nice camera to use, and the colors are incredible. This is the reason I haven't sold it. But as far as, specs and technicalities are concerned, I am not keeping that camera because it has a full frame sensor. So that was my second venture to get acquisition syndrome in. You can see a pattern here that repeated itself for both of those cameras, which is getting those cameras didn't improve my photography in any way, and that's the biggest problem with gear acquisition syndrome. For people that aren't aware of that thing or that can't really see the effects of it, what it does is basically you are not satisfied with the photos that you're getting, so you get a better camera. But the better camera will not improve your photos, so there would still be shit if you don't improve yourself. And so then you are looking at another camera that is even more expensive because that one was obviously not enough. That's not how that works, and I hope not too many people are deep into that, but I've seen my share of people thinking that way, so that's what motivated me to do this video, and also the fact that I have found a little solution. So prior to the camera I'm going to talk about today, which is not the XT1, not the D700, I was looking at replacing the XT2 because I was, again, shoulders deep into gear acquisition syndrome, into G.A.S, and I was looking at the XT5, looked really nice. I was looking maybe at a discounted XT4 and XT3, and on the same side, I was looking at, I'm doing a little display thing with my the old Nikon cameras I have access to, meaning my dad Nikon FE film camera, which I found like one of the classiest cameras of all time. My dad next camera, which was the Nikon D60, which was also my first camera, the first camera I've ever used, and I was planning to put like a relic of Nikon history, like a D1 or something like that. And I couldn't find any D1 for sale that were in good shape and at a decent price. Either they were like not working and sold for scrap, or they were extremely expensive because they were working and they are a rarity. I didn't want to spend that much on a D1. I wanted to work, obviously. So I decided to go look for D2s. So the cheapest one I could find was this little bad boy. A little is a heavy word for the camera that big. This is Nikon D2H, and it's from 2003. It's huge. It's APS-C. It has a JFET sensor, interestingly, and I think it's the only camera in existence to have a JFET sensor, and it has 4 megapixels. Yeah, you heard that correctly. It's 4 megapixels. It's really not a lot of megapixels. I'm accounted to 12 and above with D700, XT1, and even XT2, which is 24. This being 4, it's quite a bit of a challenge to get good looking images without, like the image looks good and you don't need to zoom in it. They don't have any cropping room for high resolution display and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge to use. And I wasn't planning on using it, but the ergonomics of the camera are so great. Like the D700 is pretty much what I would consider to be one of the finest cameras in terms of ergonomics. You have all your little dials and selector switches and stuff like that. D2H is really, really similar but better. It's a little bit larger. You have the same dials on the side, like the focus and stuff like that. And it's basically laid out the same way, but less compact, if that makes sense. The D700 is quite a bit of a smaller camera compared to the D2H and the D3s and stuff like that. So the buttons have more spacing, they are bigger. Like if you just if you compare the lens release button on a D700 then on a D2H, like look at that big thing. It's just like a little example, but that's just how the philosophy of controls is made on that camera. And I found that to be really, really pleasant to use. And later, when I put the file on the computer, the colors of the D2H were so great that I was like, I want to keep shooting that camera forever. So I did. I shot that camera for a straight month. I just recently stopped using it as my main camera, in fact. But the thing with the D2H is that when I went back to using my X-T2 again for photography, like for what I usually do, like landscapes and street photography, what I found that is that the D2H, as much as I love the pictures, is complete dog shit when it comes to image quality, like the ISO performance, the resolution. It's completely trash. Like really, it's trash. There is no other way to put it. But I love the images that it put out. Like I don't know if that's the whole aspect of the digicam movement or something, but I don't know. I knew that this camera was a trash camera compared to modern standards, but I couldn't stop myself from using it. And when I went back to the X-T2, I was like, what the fuck? Like, this camera, the X-T2, is so much better. If you put that into context, the X-T2 is able to get better signal to noise ratio with 6 times more resolution. So pixels are like 6 times smaller compared to the D2H, with 16 times less light. And I think that's insane. That if we put that into context, yeah, the D2H is from 2003, yeah, the X-T2 is from 2016, but still, like, that doesn't like really explain everything. I think, yeah, technological advancement, all of that, but if we put that into context, that's mind-boggling. Anyway, my method, if you probably have catched it already, you need to get a shitty camera. But the catch is that you don't need to just get a shitty camera, because I already had a shitty camera. The D60 is a camera that is better than a D2H for image quality, for sure, but most importantly, it's a shit camera to use. The grip is small, my hand is cramped when I use it, I'm like that, it's not ideal. Only has one control dial. There is no controls on the camera. Like, you always have to remove your eye from the viewfinder, go into the menus if you want to change your ISO. Like, this is the biggest thing. But really, the thing with the D2H is that the ergonomics are so good that I'm okay using that camera every day. And that's the thing that you need to think about. You need to find a camera that you are okay using every day, even if the image quality is fucked, pretty much. So when you have your modern-ish camera, like from 2016 and up, basically, and you are thinking about upgrading because somehow this camera is not fitting you anymore, and obviously you are not a professional photographer, you are not someone that really relies on its camera a lot, not a sports photographer, not a wildlife photographer which really relies on autofocus. You're just a casual photographer, you do landscapes, you do street photography, do portraits, that kind of thing. You do not really rely on camera performance that much, and we've got past, what I would consider to be good enough for pretty much everything 15 years ago. Like, the D700 is already plenty for that. And it's 15 years old, so, put that into perspective. But when you want to upgrade your modern camera, just go back to your shitty old one. Shoot that for a week, and then go back to your modern camera. And you'll see that you're gonna have less of a will to upgrade after that. And that was certainly the case for me. I'm not saying that this will work for everyone. It works for me, but I can't say that I am everyone, of course. If you have other methods to deal with the gear acquisition syndrome, please drop them below. And please do not tell me, just cave in and buy the camera. I'm gonna lose my mind if you do that. But yeah, I wanted to do that little video with no scripts and just put the camera, turn it on, and start recording, because I thought it was kind of important, especially in those times where our resources are a little bit more limited. The price of the cameras are going up for some reason, and sometimes I think that be satisfied with what we have is not a bad life lesson to get. So yeah, on that note, if you have any comments, if you have any, suggestions for maybe, I don't know, I tried to get the sound a little bit right in this video compared to the last one, which was, I got a few comments where the sound levels were a bit too low. But talking about the D2H, I'm gonna make a review on that camera. I know that some of you are already going to be pissed. Like, I got a few comments on D700 video telling me that, no, you shouldn't buy a D700 in 2022. That's nonsense. You should get a much newer camera. Yeah, mate, no, I like the colors of that one. I don't like the color of the new one, so I'm getting that one, even though it's obviously worse. And that's the same thing with the D2H. So if you are not the kind of person that put the colors and how the looks above everything else, well, you might not like the D2H review, because I'm certainly going to recommend it, especially at the price it is. Alright, on that note, I hope to see you in the next video. I don't know what the next video will be. It will either be the D2H review, which I haven't written yet, or it will be the Fujifilm X100 review, which I have written, but I don't know, I can't find myself to do the review of that camera. I've had it for like more than a year now, and it's a camera that I like the output of, but I don't like the exterior aspect of it. It looks nice, it's just a pain to use. I really don't like that camera, the ergonomics and the, those kind of thing. I much like older cameras. The D2H is much more my type of cameras than the X100 is, or the XT1 is better, is like way better. But yeah, so if you haven't catch, I have a kind of a bit of a problem doing reviews on stuff I don't like. So yeah, that could be a problem in the future, I don't know. Thanks so much for watching. This has been a pretty long one for what I wanted to do. And I'm going to put like some photos, like I usually do, of the D2H I took in last month. And yeah, see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.